It finally happened, America. In the year of our Lord 2025, we are going to have a reality soon where there is pro rel in American soccer. This is your soccer zombie, Tom Franklin, here reacting to the official news just made official on this date, March 19th, 2025. Mark this down in the history books when the USL announced that it will be adopting pro rel in 2028 or maybe 2027. We'll see. And I'll explain why that date could float around in just a little bit. Promotion relegation has been a hot button issue in America for really since time immaterial for the most part, because every European league does it. A lot of South American leagues do it. Basically, leagues around the world often have some type of pro rel. And promotion relegation is just that. If you are among the worst teams in your league, you're threatened with relegation. If you're in the last spot or the last two or three spots, you could go down a division into a lesser division. Now, in that lesser division, two or three teams often go up to the main division after good performances. And that is something that really drives fan interest in the game overseas. And it is something that a lot of American fans have been clamoring for as well. But other American fans have also been cautioning against adopting pro rel in America because of concerns over our appetite for pro rel in America. There is a tendency in America to not want to be the second fiddle in anything in America. I mean, there's always that, strive for American exceptionalism, I guess. And that kind of translates into sports as well. And especially with owners of said sports teams. Sometimes when you're running a sports team, the profit margins aren't the highest. So, you have to have a real passion for the sport if you want to be an owner of the team. And if your team is playing in a lesser division the following year after playing in a higher division the year before, your profitability just goes down a little bit. And there's been a question over whether potential owners would stomach such a thing. Where do you fall into the pro rel camp? Leave a comment below. And are you for promotion? Are you for relegation? Are you against this system altogether? Do you think it's going to wreck the United Soccer League? Just let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going on this. Oh, and speaking of American tradition, I have a brand new Olive and York kit for sale. It is the 1950 U.S. Men's National Team Tribute Kit, a modern replica of the kit that the U.S. men's national team wore when they beat England 1-0 in that famous upset, one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. And proceeds from sales of this jersey will go towards Generation City, a new St. Louis supporters group that aims to support kids and their families going forward. So you can honor the past by supporting a future generation. Go to oliveandyork.com. Link is in the description as well as the top right corner. So the president of USL, Paul McDonough, talked to The Guardian about today's landmark decision and answered some questions specifically. And The Guardian, to their credit, released it in a Q&A style format. So we can kind of get an idea of what the president thinks and what the club owners think in this article right down here. We're going to go right down to this highlighted section here because he's telling us exactly how well this was received. And he says that of the 42 teams between the leagues, 90% wanted the adoption of promotion and relegation. And it was a pretty resounding vote in favor of promotion and relegation, which is surprising because of the point that I made earlier about owners being a little risk adverse. But we'll get more into exactly what could have forced the owners' hands in this vote. He also was discussing about the potential start date for promotion and relegation, and seems to be going to be centered around the start of the new Division 1, which was just announced. And promotion relegation would, by the way, affect Division 1, the Championship, and League 1 as it currently stands right now. Would not affect League 2. League 2 is a semi-pro league meant more for amateurs and collegiate level players to continue playing and maybe get some more exposure and stay fresh for their respective seasons. So they would not be affected by promotion and relegation. But he does explain that they could start in 2027. And the way he describes it is, Division One is going to start in 2028. So teams that are playing in the USL Championship in 2027 could, in theory, be competing for promotion to that new Division One. But right now, it's going to start in 2028, and it kind of goes back into how there's going to be some things with this process that I feel that USL is going to have to cross at some point, some very tough decisions and some tough challenges ahead to actually properly implement ProRel, but we'll talk about that as the video goes on. But the first positive I want to talk about here, the first pro for ProRel, is the obvious one. It gives teams something to play for. Just to give you an example of this, I went to a game earlier this month in MLS. It was Nashville SC versus Portland Timbers, and this was a game that had no meaning to it whatsoever. It was a cold night. These two teams were not even in the same conference. Neither team's expected to do great this year, and you had a big chasm in fans in Geodis Park, a stadium that holds about 30,000 fans. They might have had 20,000 at the most. There's a lot of empty seats around me. There's a lot of empty seats around the stadium. And it's a problem that MLS currently has right now, in that unless you are like gunning for the MLS Cup or the MLS Supporter Shield and being one of the best clubs in MLS, you really don't have much else on the line here. You have very little skin in the game because you don't get relegated. So if you finish among the bottom of MLS, and if you finish like even in the middle pack of MLS, so what? So what? What does it matter? Now, yes, success does breed fandom. It does bring, which brings money and brings interest in your club as well. So there is a little skin in the game, but that competitive element of fighting for survival that you see in places like England does not exist here in America. So the idea of promotion relegation being a factor late in the season, whether your team could get promoted or they could get relegated, that drives fan interest, and it drives passion, towards that club that right now American soccer kind of lacks at the moment on a widespread level. So when the president's coming out and saying that the owners are for promotion relegation, that's a pretty telling sign of what they think about American soccer currently and where they think it is going to go. The second pro is that it does encourage more clubs to start in League One, and I'm going to explain this here. So expansion fees for the USL Championship right now are at $20 million. To get into League One, it just costs $5 million. And up to this point, the only way to get into the USL Championship is if you have a deep enough wallet to pay that $20 million expansion fee to jump into the championship. Great example of that this year is Lexington SC. They were one of the worst teams in League One last season, and now they are going to be in the championship because they paid the $20 million tab to move up. By the way, not a disrespect to Lexington fans. I'm going to see you later this week for Lexington SC versus Indy 11. I'm going to be with the Indy 11 supporters for this one. Shout out to the Brickyard Battalion, Jason Wyrick, Michelle Kennedy, everyone else that I've dealt with. You know who you are. See you Saturday. But back to the topic at hand here, and is the pay-to-play system is the only way to really move up and down, even within USL. Now, if you have promotion and relegation, a club from League One that pays just a $5 million expansion fee, if they're good enough, can be promoted to the USL Championship at no additional cost. And if I am someone that is trying to run a new soccer club, or someone that maybe is looking to be like a Sarasota Paradise and jump up from USL 2 to USL 1, now I might be more inclined to start in League One, because instead of forking over $20 million, I can fork over just $5 million. And with that remaining $15 million, put that in the club, put that towards a great staff, put that towards great players, put that towards marketing, promotion, stadiums. You can absolutely hit the ground running in League One with just a $5 million investment and all this extra money to invest in your club, because now you're going to have an incentive to pump that extra money into your League One club to fight for promotion into the championship. And you can be that, one club in the championship that goes neener, neener, neener. I only paid $5 million. And that's going to be, I think, a really big benefit to a lot of clubs that maybe are on the fence of joining League One, or maybe are a little finding the $20 million price tag for the championship a bit daunting. And the third positive I'm going to talk about here is that it's kind of an A and B situation here. So 3A, it sets the USL apart from MLS, and the 3B is that it gives additional reinforcement to its new Division 1. So one thing about competition is that you don't want to be the exact same as the uh, entity that you're competing against. Like Pepsi tastes different than Coke. Lay's taste different than Ruffles. On and on we go. Ford is different from Chevy. And you're going to have USL trying to have a tier 1 league as sanctioned by US Soccer to go head to head with MLS. Well, great, but what's going to be different about it? Sure, you might have some, different cities that MLS isn't in currently, but what else is different? What else is different about it? Oh, yeah, ProRel. That is something that sets USL so far apart from MLS. It also appeals to those fans that want to have that kind of European experience with their own clubs. And USL has a lot of passionate fans and a lot of passionate fan bases out there. I've seen that with Indy 11 and the Brickyard Battalion, for example. Louisville City has a big supporters base. Even in Union Omaha, I love being with the Omaha Parliament. They bring the drums, the smoke, the chants, and they have a good time there as well. And I think all those fans of those teams would probably be, right there in wanting to find a way to support their club even more. And that's just one way it sets itself apart. It's one way that a Louisville City would be set apart from a Nashville SC, for instance. Two teams that are in the same region, but Louisville City, you cannot mistake Louisville City for Nashville SC under a pro-rel system like this. USL is making a big step in trying to start a tier 1 league to go up against MLS. And this is something pro-rel that does make it stand out a little bit, and it reinforces that decision to do that. This is I don't want to call it a declaration of war with MLS, but it's a declaration that, hey, we're going to be serious about this and we're going to try to attract fans to our league and not yours. So it's just competition 101. You've got to be different. Pro-rel is an easy way to be different, and it's a very ambitious step. Is it too ambitious, though? Now let's get into the cons of pro-rel. And one thing that might be a con right away, you may have noticed in the thumbnail, I referenced Miami FC for a reason. The number one con would be, would relegation kill interest for a poorly supported club like Miami FC? Miami FC was the worst team in USL Championship last season, and that's not an opinion. It's just a fact. They had 11 points all season. They had a minus 63 goal differential. The next club in the standings was El Paso with 32 points. They were over 20 points worse than the worst club in USL Championship. They are famous in the USL circles for having a tough time attracting fans, and a lot of people thought that they might have folded after last season. They're not. They're still going to go into 2025 as a thing. I'm going to see them in person, by the way, on July 5th when they take on FC Tulsa, and I'm really curious if the USL2 St. Petersburg FC versus Sarasota Paradise actually outdraws Miami FC, or if the Naples and Tampa Bay Rowdies match outdraws Miami FC. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those do, honestly. At least I know the vibes will probably be better at those other two games, but sometimes you just got to see things for yourself. But I'm using them as an example because if Pro-Rel was in place last season, Miami FC would have been relegated to League One. And at that point, if you're the owner of Miami FC and you're facing the prospect of playing in a lesser division and things are already kind of dubious for you altogether, do you just at that point say, done? Because we've seen teams and clubs disappear in USL over the years. St. Louis FC is a good example of that where I live. They disappeared when MLS came about. San Diego Loyal disappeared when MLS came out. Last season, Memphis 901 disappeared because they couldn't get a stadium. Northern Colorado Hailstorm had financial issues. Central Valley Fuego, the worst team in League One, actually joint worst team League One. I should be careful about that. They have ceased. They haven't cease to exist as an entity, but they're out of League One altogether because they had a lot of attendance and just club issues that they couldn't maintain themselves. Now, on the other side of that, for fans, if your club gets relegated, does that give you an incentive to stick around? This is America. This is the remote control station where, we are famous for our attention spans being so small that, if there's something we don't like on TV, click, we'll just change the channel. And I think fans might do that with some of these clubs that already have kind of dubious support altogether. Now, again, I view American soccer as a bit of a miasma at this point. It's kind of developing right now. So, it's sometimes you have to, these things happen in a developing league where clubs just don't survive for whatever reason or another. Would relegation accelerate that process? And if so, if we're cutting out the fat of the league, is that necessarily a bad thing? Something to consider. The other con that I would have, the obvious con I would say, is that U.S. soccer does have stringent mandates for each level in terms of stadiums and facilities and investments. And if a lower club gets promoted and they don't necessarily have the right requirements for the league above them, what happens then? So Union Omaha, I'm going to use them as an example here. They are trying to get a new stadium built to move up to the championship. Their current baseball stadium is not the greatest, and it might qualify for the tier 2 at status at this point. I'm actually not too privy on that, but I know there's other clubs in League One that might have trouble qualifying for tier 2 status. Another example, FC Tulsa, they play in a baseball stadium themselves in the championship. If they were to get promoted, if they had just this miracle Cinderella run and they get promoted and they win the championship, they probably do not qualify for tier 1 status because I know their baseball stadium doesn't hold 15,000 fans, nor would a baseball stadium be probably accepted as a tier 1 stadium. So what then? Let's go to the USL president on this. So he says that as far as pro league standards go, we have to have conversations with US Soccer, CONCACAF, FIFA about that. Are we just going to get waivers? We're not sure, but those are conversations that we have to have. Okay, so that's clear as mud. We are basically being told by the league president that they don't actually have a plan for that right now, that they are going to have to cross that bridge later on. But I think that maybe part of their strategy is to force U.S. soccer's hand because we've talked ad nauseum, not just on this channel, but just in the soccer community, how MLS has been able to skirt around the U.S. Open Cup and basically bully U.S. soccer into just allowing this to happen. Well, it sounds like USL might be playing MLS's game a little bit here in that you have all this hype and all this buzz and all this interest about not just Division One, but now you're going to have Pro Rel. And you're basically, I think USL is trying to force US soccer's hand here to either A, get those waivers, or maybe if U.S. Soccer doesn't want to deal with that on a case-by-case basis every single year, maybe to loosen those restrictions. This is, again, a tactic that MLS has used to get around the Open Cup. Is USL trying to do it to get around the stadium requirements? Time will tell on that. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. And then the third con isn't really a con so much, just more as a 3A and a 3B question here. What about clubs that have already bought into the championship level, and does this kill pay to play? Again, I mentioned earlier, the USL Championship, they have $20 million entry fees. I don't know what the cost for Division One is going to be at this point yet. I assume it's going to be a lot higher. And so what if you're a Louisville City, for instance, and you end up, let's just say they have to buy their way into Division One. And they pay, let's just say for argument's sake, $50 million. It might be more, it might be less. But say they pay that. And in a couple years' time, here comes Union Omaha out of the League One. They just won back-to-back promotions. They only paid $5 million to get into this league. In fact, actually, they've been in the league for a few years and may have been even less than that. So now how do you, as a club that paid $50 million, feel about this club that only paid $5 million or less to get into the league? Apparently, it's not a big deal because 90% of owners again voted in favor of pro rel here. But it's something that made me think a little bit, and maybe it made you think as well. But the other thing about, and the more important thing is, does this kill pay to play? Like I said, Lexington SC, not one of the better clubs in League One last year, but they're going to play in the championship because they paid that $20 million fee to move up. And anyone in League One can do that. Anyone that is in League One right now, they can just, fork over $20 million in cash and bam, they're in the championship. A lot of teams that are in the championship are probably going to want to move up to League One or Division One rather. Bam, pay the money, you're there. Does Pro Rel kill that? Because again, as I mentioned, I think more clubs that are on the fence about starting pro soccer teams are going to be incentivized to start in League One because you don't have to pay to move up the ladder anymore. You can just, take the money that you're going to pay for an expansion fee, invest it in a good club, and then just move up the ladder. I'm wondering if this is going to change that pay to play scheme now, or if it's still going to be an option for clubs as well, which kind of defeats the purpose of pro rel because what if, say, I'm just going to use two random clubs as an example. I'm going to say Louisville City's going for a Division One promotion against Rhode Island FC, and it's neck and neck, and Rhode Island FC ends up winning. And they win the automatic promotion. Does Louisville City at that point just fork over the money to get promoted? And if it does, doesn't that kind of kill the fun and enjoyment of pro rel? Doesn't it? But I think everyone that has been advocating for or against pro rel knows that to make this step, there's going to be a lot of questions about how this is going to be implemented and how it's going to work, and even flat out if it is going to work. Bold move from USL to try this. I'm very interested in seeing where it goes from here. I like the idea of pro rel, but I have concerns about its potential execution. But let me know what you think about pro rel. Are you a pro rel supporter? Do you think USL's got a good plan here? Or are you against pro rel, and do you think this could be a bad idea for the league? Let me know in the comments below. Share this video and let's get a discussion going about this. And of course, like and subscribe to help get this video out to more soccer fans like you. And also consider becoming a member of the Zombie Ultras. I try to vlog USL games for you, but travel's expensive in America. So every little bit helps get me to places like Lexington this weekend for Lexington versus Indy 11. And then the Kentucky Derby with Louisville City versus Lexington coming up. I'm going to be there for that. So thank you, Zombie Ultras, for helping me travel, as well as the 99-cent supporter section. You all are real ones. This is your Soccer Zombie, Tom Franklin here, and those aforementioned vlogs that I have done, they're a big part of this channel. If you just discovered this channel for the first time, I have a whole playlist of my USL vlogs right up here. And maybe by the time you've watched this video, I've done the Lexington Indy 11 one. That'll be right up here as well. But you can also find out why Louisville City might be already Tier 1 status. I mean, they hosted Eintracht Frankfurt last year. That game's in there too.